Before Jockey's Ridge became a state park, everyone actually thought it was a park. It was just a big sand dune, and everyone climbed Jockey's Ridge. It was paradise.
Jockey's Ridge State Park, of course, is one of our most beloved parks. We do receive well over 1 million visitors a year, and I believe we're in the top 5 most visited parks in North Carolina. It's thought that the dunes are between 5,000 to 6,000 years old. Essentially over hundreds, if not thousands of years of storm surges, high winds. Every individual grain of sand that you see out here on the dunes ultimately rolled up from the ocean floor onto the island. About 95% of our sand roughly is quartz, and then a biotite, magnetite, and maybe a few other additional minerals makes up the majority of the sand we have here on the dunes. Those main minerals eroded from the Appalachians millions of years ago and accumulated offshore, and it still remains today. We are known as the tallest active dune on the East Coast, meaning that the dune or the park is physically moving. Jockey's is really the last of a much larger dune system that stretched from Jockey's roughly 80 miles north along the coast to False Cape, Virginia. We are the last really of that much larger, older dune system, so that alone makes us extremely unique. We have around 530 acres of park property. Just over 50% or half of the park are open dune areas. But then the other remaining portion are our low-lying vegetated areas, the areas where our wildlife seeks shelter. Around 160 different types of birds can be seen here at some point throughout the year. 38 different amphibian and reptile species. We have around 15 different mammal species. White-tailed deer, coyotes, red fox, gray fox. We recently had sightings of river otter on our northern boundary on the sound side. And actually, just recently, one of our critters that has been observed is the bobcat. We, from my understanding, have never actually had an observation of bobcat in the park, and we were fortunate enough within the past month or so to actually capture one on our wildlife camera. We are the final terminus of the Mountains to Sea Trail. This is segment 18. The Mountains to Sea Trail starts on the North Carolina-Tennessee border at Kleeman's Dome in the Great Smoky Mountains. The Mountains to Sea Trail is comprised of a wide range of natural areas from state parks, greenways, trails, rivers, and road sections. Of course, ends here at Jockey's Ridge. One of the challenges of having a park that is an active dune is that the natural evolution of the dune is ultimately to roll over itself. To kind of put things in perspective, in the 1950s, the ridge was around 150 feet. In the 70s, 80s, it dropped down to maybe around 100 feet. And currently our two westernmost ridges, the two ridges closest to the Roanoke Sound, are around 70 to 75 feet. So that is a bit of an example of showing you how the dunes are shifting, the elevation is dropping, but that is what's naturally meant to occur. The challenge is we have private residents and a town road on our southern boundary. So this is an area where we physically have to keep the park within its own boundaries. You can see different patches of vegetation that ultimately create obstructions. Of course, their strong root systems physically hold the park in place. When folks are out hiking, you can see the remnants of a mini golf course. And that is a great example of an object that is standing the test of time, where shifting sands may collect at the base. Other years, it may become more exposed. One of the amazing things about Jockey's and our location right here in Nags Head is we have thousands of motorists on 158 daily. You can simply pull into the park entrance and enter a completely different world, one that you may have never experienced before. In the early 70s, prior to Jockey's being established as a state park, the entire dune landscape was owned by numerous individuals. A developer had moved in on the north end of what now is part of our northern boundary and was going to be putting in a new housing development. Well, of course, that raised local concern about the destruction of the dunes.
On August 15th, 1973, myself, I was 7 years old, my brother and my sister and I were going up Jockey's Ridge, and just like we did every single day, we got to the top, we looked over the peak of the ridge, we noticed a bulldozer was clearing sand on the backside, so literally taking buckets of sand and removing it from the ridge. We went home and we told our mom, careless to bomb. She left the shop, she went back over to Jockey's Ridge, she went right up to the bulldozer and she stood in front of that big old bulldozer's scoop. She didn't move, and she told him that she wasn't gonna move, and he literally stopped, shut down, and left. That kind of action spurred the people to preserve Jockey's Ridge, so she went home, she got on the phone, and she started calling people. There had been some efforts in years before to kind of preserve Jockey's Ridge, but this was the defining moment. She, along with several other people, formed the People to Preserve Jockey's Ridge. She typed out a petition. It was our job as kids to, when people stopped on the bypass to go climb Jockey's Ridge, to come up to their car with a petition and have them sign their names because they wanted to preserve Jockey's Ridge. A lot of phone calls to Raleigh, a lot of meetings with the governor and the lieutenant governor at the time, Jim Hunt. The summer of 1974, the Department of Interior actually proclaimed Jockey's Ridge as a National Natural Landmark. So that designation helped kind of catapult the rest of the activity that was necessary. Also, the federal government at that point in time, basically, along with the legislature for the state of North Carolina, the General Assembly appropriated funds to buy the rest of Jockey's Ridge that wasn't donated. On May 31st, 1975, the Jockey's Ridge Jamboree happened. It was the ceremonial handing over of the deed for the first tract of Jockey's Ridge to the state of North Carolina for it to become a state park. Growing up here, we all just took Jockey's Ridge for granted. We all thought that Jockey's Ridge was just some place that was here for us. Look, there I am. That's my sister and my brother. Literally, August 15th, 1973, 3 little kids went home and told their mom that something was happening to their big sand dune, and she fixed it.